All right, everybody, part 3. So for part 3, this would be for a patient who has no maintenance fluids running. And what we still need to give an IV antibiotic, let's say. So we don't just run the IV antibiotic straight into the patient through a primary line. We still set it up like a piggyback, which means then we need to set what we call a saline back, or a fluid that's going to be taking the place of a primary solution. This fluid then is going to be programmed in that when the piggyback runs in, it's going to convert over to what we call TKO, to keep open. And we're going to set that rate at 42 milliliters an hour. So it just keeps the line open then, as that's what, it's either TVO or TKO. And then when we come back, once the IV piggyback is run in, then we're going to need to discontinue this line and flush their intermittent device. So we've got our saline back at 0.9% sodium chloride. It's in the pump. So I need to get my pump set first and get this running. So I'm going to wake my pump up. I'm going to cancel my standby. I need to change to primary. Right now, this had a piggyback running, so it says change to PRIM, prime. So I'm going to arrow up and left arrow over. So for my primary, and what you'll see is a little whited out little block shows up at the top that says you're going to be programming your primary line. So for my rate, I don't want a rate of 125 an hour anymore. I'm going to take this rate down to a TKO. So I'm going to take it up to 40 and 42. So the rate is going to be 42 milliliters an hour. So I've got that, so I can OK to confirm. And then I'm going to set my volume to be confused. I am kind of confused. My volume to infuse. I don't want this running forever. Remember, this is an isotonic solution. It's not the same thing as like drinking water. It's not hypotonic. So we don't want this running endlessly. So I might set it up at 42 an hour. Let's set it at 40. It's under an hour, and hopefully I get in the room before then to get this taken down. So I'm going to go over here, drop my volume to be infused down to 40. You always get the old numbers in your pump often when you turn it on, so you have to make sure you go through and clear it out. So I have a volume to be infused. My VTBI now is 40. I'm going to say okay. I'm going to take that. All right, so my primary is set. Now I'm going to get ready to attach my IV piggyback. So I have a 50 milliliter IV piggyback. I'm going to need brand new secondary tubing. I will need gloves again, as well as an alcohol swab, because I'm needing to attach this piggyback. One thing that I didn't mention is that you need to know earlier in our other films, which port am I going after here? This port is between the bag and the pump. So if I plug something in here, the pump is going to draw it in. There's also a port all the way down here. I'm going to lift up Casey's arm here a little bit. There's also a port very close down to the IV site. This port is where we access to do IV pushes. If I put my secondary line in here, it would be directly from the bag to the patient and would bypass the pump. So that helps you kind of make sense. We need the pump to pump in our IV piggyback. We don't want it to run in by gravity. The other thing that's a sure tell for you is the tubing's awfully short, and it would be a hard reach to make it down to that lower port. So always kind of hold it up here. Here's my bag, here's my port, here's my pump. I need to be coming into the Y site above my pump. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to get my tubing ready, and I'm going to go ahead and get my pump running here because I just flushed my IV and it's happy. So our primary saline back solution is running. Same thing, my IV tubing has its little wrapper on here. We're going to get rid of that. I have a hanger for it. First thing I do when I get my tubing out of the bag is what, Jane?
Clamp it.
Clamp it, or it'll be running in your shoe for sure. All right, untangle all my knots here. So now my tubing is ready for me. And I'm going to get my gloves on before I open and spike this IV drug. Okay, so I have the same situation again where I have tubing that has no fluid in it. So we use the retro flush system here for getting our tubing primed with primary solution. Got the right port. I'm going to scrub it for 15 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. All right, 15 seconds. I'm going to remove the cap from the lower lock end. Get this little guy out of my way and insert my tubing. Now I'm going to retroflush the primary or the saline back solution into my line. I'm going to open my roller clamp, holding the drip chamber below the level. Here comes my fluid. Just about to enter the drip chamber. In the drip chamber, and I'm going to take it up 1/2 to 2/3 full. All right, there's 2/3. So my line is primed, and now I'm ready to attach my IV piggyback. So same thing, injection, spike, it's got a foil over it. I need to do ladies first. Pull the foil off, keeping that area sterile. Pull your spike off second. I'm going to flip my little tube up here and spike the bag. I can do it in kind of a horizontal, but notice that I don't have it up against my uniform. There's a real tendency for you guys to want to get it up here where you got stronger muscles. You need to hold it away from your body. Run it up to the groove, drop, make sure none of my little bubbles went in. Just like before, it's going to hang up high. I'm going to use my hanger. I need to drop my saline back. It's now hooked below the level of my piggyback. Right now this is clamped, so this is still dripping. So now I'm going to get ready to program in for my piggyback. So I'm going to push stop. And right now my screen does say change to piggy. I don't have to go to special functions. Arrow up, arrow left. Here's my piggyback. So I have 50 milliliters, and let's say this time this needs to run over an hour. So what's that going to be? It's going to be 50 milliliters an hour. So I'm going to change my rate to 50. So the rate is good. I'm going to OK that. And now I'm going to drop down the arrow to volume to be infused. Left arrow over here. I have 50 in the bag. I'm going to add 20 cc's for a total of 70. So I need to reset these numbers and make sure I have it to 70.
And why do we add 20 extra, Michelle?
It helps to clear some of the medication out of the tube. It'll only clear it down as far as the level of the actual saline, but you do get more of the drug pushed through. So we're going to make sure, residual. So I have volume to be infused 70, so I'm ready to start. I'm going to open my roller clamp and push start. Oops, I guess I better say OK first. OK for the 70 and start. So it says piggy on my screen. I'm running at 50 mils, and I now have 69.90 milliliters left to go. So before I ever leave the room, I look up, I make sure that this IV piggyback is indeed dripping before I leave, and that this one has stopped. Probably the most common mistake is that folks forget to open the roller clamp. So let's try, well, let's see what happens if I do close this. If I forgot to open this and I started it, this isn't dripping anymore. It stopped. But guess who is dripping? My bag down here will be dripping. So here goes my drops here. So the pump doesn't know what's above it. It's only going to pull based on gravity. So if this one is rolled off, the primary bag, this saline back, is going to run in at our 50 milliliters an hour. And this is just going to be hanging here for that hour. So one of the things we have, when you walk into the room in the morning, do look up and make sure that any piggyback that was hung above your patient actually was infused. So that's why I say never leave the room until you see your IV piggyback starting to drip. And I'll take a minute to make some suction. This one is stopped. And here it comes. There it is. And now that piggyback is dripping. So that's the most important thing to make sure that you actually run in your antibiotic. All right. So when this is complete, we would go ahead and shut down the pump, and we would remove the primary tubing, flush our intermittent device, make sure that you've got a sterile cap on the end of that tubing, and put it away until the next IV is due. And that's it.